Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming today. We're so glad you're here with us for our July edition of Native Plants at Noon. Looks like we still have quite a few people coming in. So just want to talk for a minute about our Native Plants at Noon series, which is every third Thursday at noon for the rest of 2021. So we're about halfway through, and you can find any previous episodes that you missed on our website at deeproots.org. So we hope you'll check those out there. Very pleased to have you with us today. The weather has not been the most cooperative for us here on Native Plants at Noon. We've had extreme cold temperatures. Last month, the phone we were streaming from overheated in the middle of our time, and today we're dodging thunderstorms. So luckily, we think we've got a little bit of a break in the weather. So we're going to head outside at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center with MDC landscape specialists Alix Daniel and Cydney Ross for a rainy day walk. If you have questions as we go along, please put those in the Q&A on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. It's much easier for us to find the questions if they're in the Q&A than in the chat, but you can also check the chat as I'll be putting the names of the plants as we get to each one there for your reference. Before we begin, just want to give a big thanks to the Missouri Department of Conservation for all that they do to protect Missouri's fish, forest, and wildlife, and to encourage people to plant native plants. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alix and Cydney. Again, they're the native landscape specialists at MDC's Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center. Alix and Cydney, over to you.
Hello, thank you, Sarah.
Hello.
I'm Cydney.
I'm Alix.
And we are the native landscape specialists here at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, Kansas City. And as Sarah said, it's super rainy today, but we are outside to show you some awesome summertime blooms here on the grounds. So yeah, we're going to try to stay dry and do our best, but there's some really cool plants in action right now. So
yeah, we're going to try to be loud too, because the rain's going to probably drown us out.
That's right. We're good at being loud. If you all tuned in, we're good at talking, good at being loud. So, and as Sarah mentioned, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A, and we will try to stop talking at some point so that we can answer your question. So real quick, I am going to, can you hold this umbrella for a second? Try to do this one handed. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here we go. You know.
If you can't hear me very well, speak up or I'll
type in. Yeah. I'll try to reiterate what you're saying as well. So
so the first species we're looking at today is the prairie blazingstar, and that's this one.
Look at that.
I want to show you really quick. It's so cute.
Yeah, let's see. Okay.
We've got someone sleeping here.
We have a sleeping guest. Do you see that bumblebee? Let's see, right here. So when the weather, yes, I think y'all can probably see that bumblebee there in the
relate
center.
To it. It's a good day to take a nap.
It is. I know. I wish we could all be napping right now too.
So this is a great plant for pollinators. Typically on a nice day when it's not raining, these would be covered in bees, butterflies, moths, wasps, flies, tons of different pollinators. Love Liatris. This is Liatris pycnostachya, the prairie blazing star. And this is one of the more common blazing stars you'll see all over the tall grass prairie. This is a plant that has a spiked flower. And as you can see, it's got such a nice upright form. This is a 2-year-old plant here.
Geez, only 2 years old?
Two.
That's crazy.
And this is about what they would look like at maturity and standing upright and being able to hold themselves up.
Yeah, that's impressive. I have a quick question. So it looks like, is that one plant with 4 different spikes coming out?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the first year, the corms are really small. They're little like ball corms.
And is the corm is the root? Okay, yeah.
And then they get bigger and bigger and add more stems to the corms themselves. So when you're digging these or transplanting them or moving them around, you're looking for that big root ball, or the big like solid form, which is the root ball, kind of like a tulip, or
Okay. Yeah.
more like an iris, I guess.
Yeah, I've also heard that voles and crows and all kinds of critters love to eat the corm.
Yes, they do.
So does that make it challenging for planting and transplanting? Yeah.
Yes, it does. My advice would be, if you're challenged by some of those animals in your yard, especially moles and voles, buy these plants more mature, maybe 2-year-old instead of young little tiny seedlings. That way they're going to have a better chance to make it to maturity. So yeah, but the Latin name, I think, is translates roughly to like crow
food.
Crows
love it.
They love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as you can see, we're here at the front of the Discovery Center, and this is a full sun situation.
Yeah, very full sun, very
hot.
We're in the
prairie
island of the parking lot, and they love it here because they're adapted for our heat. And you can see that they've done just fine with our weather conditions here. We've been blessed with a wonderful summer with actual rain in it, so everyone's looking pretty happy right now.
Yeah.
Including this. I don't know how close we can get to it, but this one is one of my favorite tall grass prairie plants called compass flower.
I'm gonna try
that in a little.
Yeah, that looks good. Hold it right there. So that looks a lot like a sunflower. Are they related?
It is a Silphium, which sunflower is a common name for a lot of flowers in the Silphium and Helianthus families, or genuses, I guess. And this is Silphium laciniatum, and it's compass plant. The common name is compass plant because the leaves, and I'm just going to take just one of these little leaves off, because I got to show you how. Whoops. Not that one. This one. Okay. So it's kind of hard to get down in there. Otherwise, if it wasn't wet stuff, we would get down in there. But these leaves, you can see they're very uniquely shaped, and they've got really deep lobes in them. And the reason it's called compass plant is because about 2 or 3 weeks after the plant starts to grow, the leaves will orient themselves so that they are standing upright like this, and the sides are facing north and south, and the broad sides are facing east and west. And that is a function to help with water retention and to also help from getting scalded by the sun, basically.
Cool.
On these giant leaves.
I love the shape of the leaves. They just look very, clearly they're different than like the broad leaves that we normally see on.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest leaves on our native plants. And we use these a lot in public programs for like art stuff.
Are they really rough too?
Really rough.
Cool. It looks like sandpaper.
Yeah.
Ooh, and they've got like hair. Yeah. Nice. That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful plant. This is about what you want it to be. This is how this plant can behave in a more compact planting. As you can see, it's surrounded and held up by a community of other plants. Now we have this plant at some places where it's the only species and it's a monoculture. And in those beds, like in our prairie circles, you can see that it gets to be 10 foot, 11 foot, 12 foot high.
Wow.
So this one is a nice mature size for one that's got some competition to it.
Yeah.
That's the key to keeping this species shorter, is give it competition.
And don't feed it,
too much
right?
room. Don't feed it, right?
Yeah.
Don't baby it.
Don't baby it.
So speaking of that, did I miss anything on cooking?
No, I think that covers a lot of it.
You can use it to find your way in the dark. If you're lost at night, you find a compass plant. You
Feel the
figure out
leaves.
which way is north and south. So the plant that I'm talking about that's helping to hold this plant up is another is one of our prairie grasses, and this is prairie dropseed. And you can see that it's kind of right now in the wet. This one might be a good one to look at. It's not
What about this one back here?
Oh yeah.
Let's use that one.
This spot kind of shows how it drapes over. It's got a gorgeous form, a fountain form, and it spreads and drapes on all sides. So 360 drape on that.
360 drape. It's
so
got a full drape.
This plant works really well in very formal beds because it looks like an ornamental that you would grow for its beauty and form.
Right.
But it's a native plant, and it supports some of our native pollinators.
Mhm.
It flowers. Its seeds feed some of our native birds.
Yeah. Did you all know grasses flower? I don't know if we talked about that. When I learned that, I was like, what? That's so cool. Some are more obvious than others, but yeah, I never thought about grasses flowering and just thought that was really cool.
And this grass actually has an interesting thing where some people, when it's flowering, to some people it smells like buttered popcorn, and to other people it smells like cilantro.
I'm in group cilantro.
Yeah, I'm in buttered popcorn.
It smells like cilantro to me.
Weird.
Ooh, one thing I want to point out too that I love, especially about this bed in general with the prairie drop seed, is there's wild petunia down here. Ruellia humilis.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? It's not on our plant list, but it's kind of cute. And same with the purple poppy mallow. I love how these ground cover species pop up through the grass here. It's so nice. It just gives it like a nice little pop of color.
Yeah. So these this bed, I would say, is a good example of having a nice mix of ground cover.
Whoops, we lost it. Thank you. Thank you, hold this.
A nice mix of ground cover, grasses, and then tall structural forbs like the Liatris and the compass plant.
Yeah.
This bed was not intended to be like this. It was planted by bird and by wind, and we let it happen.
We just let it do its thing.
Happy accidents.
That's right.
Right.
Well, awesome. So we're gonna walk to our next plants, and while we're walking, Sarah, if you have any questions from the audience, we would love to take those questions now.
Sure do. So John asks, can I plant native plants in the summer, or do I need to wait for fall or spring?
That's a great
That's
question.
a great question.
So yeah, technically you could plant in the summertime, but it's going to be a lot more difficult because you're going to have to keep it really well watered, and it's going to deal with the heat. I mean, I think spring and fall are ideal, and I wouldn't recommend planting in summer, but what do you think, Alix?
Yeah, we got lucky this summer in Kansas City because we've had consistent rain. And so we've been pushing the boundaries and planting much, much later than we normally would. But if you plant in the summer, yeah, you just have to consistently water to make sure you don't lose your plants to transplant shock, drought, that kind of a thing. So that's why we typically wait until spring and fall.
Yeah, I think right now is a really great time to be planning your garden. So for fall planting, so, you know, that's always my big thing is plan. Oh, here's some of the prairie drop seed in bloom.
Can you show that?
Yeah.
This is,
look at the flowers on that.
yeah, you can't, you
barely see them, but it's a nice spray. It's like, let's see if I get this to cooperate.
The flower heads.
Here we go. Yeah, you kind of see it like in the background. It looks like kind of a misty looking.
Yeah, it is a spray. It's a spray of like loose a spike or like a cone, I guess, of loose seedling or seeds that they look really nice in combination with the draping grass.
Yeah, great question, Sarah. What else do we have?
Dennis asks, my blazingstar ends are all curly and twisty. Are they trying to tell me something?
Ooh,
They're
curly
twisty.
and twisty.
I have rarely met a Liatris that is straight. Sometimes you'll get patches of them where they're a little bit straighter than normal, but they do tend to curl and make the funniest little shapes. I just cut a bouquet for Cydney's mom where they were all right angles, like they were all nodding.
They were so
sideways.
funny.
That's a great question. I don't actually
Well,
know if
do you
if it's
think
like lack of water during the time they were putting out the bloom or something?
or are
like
they
that?
reaching for more sun maybe?
I don't know.
It depends on your situation, of course.
They could be reaching for sure. There's one in my new planting that is curled into a question mark, which I think is
That's
really
so cute.
I don't think it hasn't seemed to affect the health of our Liatris. They just keep blooming even if they get bent.
Yeah. Great question. So I think we got time for one more question before we get to our next plant.
Sure,
want
let's do
some.
one more. Cynthia asks if prairie dropseed can tolerate boggy soil or be suitable for a rain garden.
Prairie dropseed, can it tolerate soggy soil?
No.
I don't think so. It's a prairie species, so it would be
Yeah, it needs dry soil.
yeah.
We planted it over in that section. It seems to do okay in the clay, but I wouldn't put it where it's gonna have
Not
like,
for a
wet
rain
feet for a
garden.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite a rain garden.
Yeah.
Although it's managing the clay all right. So.
Yeah.
Do you want to switch?
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass the camera off to Alix. And over here. Sarah, we reached purple coneflower or Echinacea purpurea. And we also have gray-headed coneflower, which is, I always call it rabbit pinata. That's not what it's called. Ratibida Pineda. Alix, help me out here.
Ratabita Pineda. By Pineda?
I've always,
oh no.
the way I
It might
see
be
it,
Pineda
it
or
looks
by
like
Pineda.
rabbit pinata to me, but you know, Latin's hard, but really important when you're trying to buy the right plant for your garden. So look at this combination. Isn't this gorgeous? So technically this gray-headed coneflower is not a coneflower or not an echinacea, I should say, but these are both really great summer blooms. I'll just start talking about purple coneflower first though. This is, we've talked about this in our earlier episodes during the winter time. This is a really great plant for your native garden, whether you are just starting out or you already have an established bed, because it is a pollinator magnet. When it's not raining, it's covered in bees. Oh, there's a sleeping bee over here.
Oh, can I go around and get it?
Yeah, go for it if you want to. But
I'll step through.
So it's really great for not just pollinators, but also birds like the American goldfinch. They will feed on the seeds of the coneflower in the winter time and the fall, pretty much whenever the seeds start to form. And it establishes itself readily. It does well in full sun to part sun. Sometimes you can even push it into shadier locations. I would say with this plant, definitely try it. You'll also notice at your plant stores that there are a lot of cultivars of this plant because of its, I guess, with its genetics. I don't really know a whole lot about genetics, but there's something to it where they can modify it to have different colors. So you'll see some really weird like variations, like white ones, orange ones, like where this is even orange too. Those we don't recommend because it's altering that genetic makeup. We don't know how it affects the nutrients for insects and wildlife. So
and how they see the color is so important because insects see on a very different color scale than we do. And so when we mess with the colors of these plants, we don't know if we're making them invisible or making them seem like they're not a food source for these animals.
That's a really good point. So it's always best to stick with
insects too.
Yeah. It's always good to stick with true natives, in our opinion, especially if you're planting for more than just aesthetics. Think about your goals. But this is a good plant to have. It spreads really well, like I said, and you can really push the boundaries on light and soil conditions. So, and then the gray-headed coneflower, it usually has really nice upright structure too, but because it's a little floppy.
We can't judge anyone who's flopping today.
Any of the floppers today.
They're all wet.
They're all wet and tired, and they're napping too, right?
They're taking naps.
I really like the shape of this right here. Oh gosh, I'm blanking. What's this called?
The cone.
The cone. Oh my gosh. The cone of the flower.
Disc florets.
Disc florets. Thank you. I always get those confused with ray florets. I think it's just got a really nice structure to it, especially if you're thinking like past the bloom time. Both the purple coneflower and gray-headed coneflower look really nice in the fall and winter. If you leave them up, which I recommend for the birds and overwintering insects, you'll also have some nice structure in your garden. When the snow starts to fall, it piles on nicely, and while it's providing a food source. So we definitely recommend these flowers here. And look how beautiful that is. And I never thought I would like that pink and yellow combo, but it's really growing on me this year.
It's nice. The common name I think comes more from so after the
disc florets bloom, which are those the little flowers on the
This is
inside.
pretty gray right here. The
Yeah, but I
baby
think
one.
like when they dry out and the seeds come on, they look even grayer. And they're not gray, black gray right now because it's all things are
Everything's-
wet.
yeah.
Too, but that's what I think. That's where they get their common name from.
Yeah,
Which is when you want to leave them up for the birds.
that's right. So we have one more prairie full-sun prairie species we'd like to talk about today. So we're going to walk over here to the Rattlesnake Master. And in the meantime, just look at how beautiful our prairie plaza is this time of year. It's a prairie birthday surprise. Oh, look, the Liatris are blooming over here too now. Yay!
Oh, cute.
Yay. This is Primrose Prairie. It's my first public landscape design. There's over 500 prairie species. I'm not going to focus on it today, but
There's not 500 species. There's 500.
500 plants.
I was gonna say.
500 plants. There's like 20 species.
Yeah.
But it was.
Oh no! Do we talk
Okay,
about
let's
it?
talk
Okay.
about it. Okay, last night we saw a fox out here.
Well,
and
no, yesterday. Start from the beginning. Start from yesterday.
Okay, yesterday we were out here. I was driving around and I saw a giant red-eared slider mama laying eggs here in Primrose Prairie. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And and so then we're like, oh, we gotta keep an eye on it. And then last night we saw a red fox. And so where turtles lay eggs typically becomes fox treats, as we like to say.
Yeah, or
Food
possums.
sources for other predators, and it sure did. So this turtle laid eggs yesterday, and it got eaten overnight. And there's the evidence of that.
Thankfully, they lay hundreds and hundreds here, so some of them do end up surviving.
Yeah, but that's
I mean, a lot of
crazy.
them.
We just saw this happen. Yet, like laid the eggs yesterday. So that's neat.
It looks like she dug right under one of your plants, but didn't pull it out, so it might be able to salvage it.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's an interesting wildlife situation where you have to prepare for turtle nesting
I know.
as part of your planting.
Yeah, that was something that I didn't feel. I mean, because the turtles really do dig. They dig hard to lay those eggs.
They really do.
And then, yeah, so I was like, oh, I feel very conflicted about this because I'm happy for the turtle, but also my planting.
The plants.
Ooh, these turned out nice.
Yeah.
So focus. Rattlesnake Master. I'm not gonna get the Latin name right on this one. It's like
You can do it.
you're
Eryngium.
Eryngium yuccifolium.
Yeah, yuccifolium.
Yuccifolium
Yeah.
now. Latin's hard. It's again really important we're buying the right plants. But this is Rattlesnake Master. That's the common name. And this is a really interesting shaped prairie species. So again, full sun. And it's got these nice spiky tops. Pollinators love it. Oh, there's a teeny tiny bee. You're not going to be able to see it. It's so small. It's like the tip of my pinky nail. But this gets covered in all kinds of pollinators like wasps, bees, butterflies, moths, flies, everything like that. And this is what it looks like in bloom. And then it'll start to go to seed and turn brown. And again, this is a nice structural plant to think about having, especially for winter. It stands up really nicely. And the name Rattlesnake Master comes from some folklore about this plant, in that people thought that you could use this to as like an antidote for rattlesnake bites. I think it doesn't work. I don't.
Not
think it works.
true.
Go to a doctor.
It's not true.
Don't try to save yourself from a rattlesnake bite with this plant. But so that's kind of, I think it had to do with the root of that
Yeah.
plant.
And this is a plant, one of the plants that Native Americans used to as a fiber plant. You can make cordage out of it. You can use it to make straps.
Yeah.
I think there was recently, or maybe not recently, but there, yeah. So it's you can see
Yeah.
the fibers where they had
last
found a pair of shoes, a pair of sandals made from Rattlesnake Master from indigenous people, and
That's so cool.
yeah, it's a really useful plant and gorgeous as well.
Yeah.
And it comes the Latin name references that it looks like yucca. It's got very yucca like
The
leaves.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And they're very stiff. They've got little spines on the ends. They're not like super sharp, but they are like a yucca in that way.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I think
Yeah.
they're such an interesting looking plant.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's so many more things blooming here in the prairie. We'd love to invite you to come out to see us, come for a visit, walk around, see what's in bloom. But in the meantime, Sarah, we could probably take 1 or 2 more quick questions before we sign off.
Sounds good. Maureen would like to ask if gray-headed coneflower can be cut back early to have it be shorter, or would that affect the bloom?
We've never tried it, but it's in the aster family. I'd say try it.
Well, you know what? I did cut some back.
Oh, you did?
I don't know. I couldn't look to see how they're doing.
Oh.
I can't see them over here.
Well, we may have to get back to you on that. We've been
Yeah.
trying what we call the Chelsea chop on a lot of different species this year, cutting them back early and seeing if we can get them to bloom shorter. I have not tried that one in the past, but we'll see it. We'll have to see what the patch that Cydney did. But it should be one that would do that, because that is one of the defense mechanisms for prairie plants is that they when they get either eaten or knocked over by a storm or whatever, they're usually able to recover by reblooming shorter. So, but that one has it's not quite as with the other plants that we do that with, such as the asters and stuff. They bloom out of each bud comes out of each spot in the on the plant, where each leaf is on the plant. And with gray-headed, it's there's base foliage and then there's one flowering stem. So
it might be different.
It might be difficult because that flowering stem doesn't come up until right before it's about to bloom. So you might have to catch it right at the right time.
Yeah.
But I think it is one that if you let it go to seed and you cut it back after it's gone to seed, you could get it to regrow and rebloom maybe later in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, experiment.
I would always say, give it a shot. You maybe not do all of your plants like that, but it's good to experiment.
Yeah,
with
try a
that kind of
patch,
thing.
a little patch of them. So that's what we do. We try to take a picture of every time we try one, because we inevitably forget all the spots where we did it. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, worth some experimentation for sure.
Yeah,
All right.
let us know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Audrey asks if Rattlesnake Master needs to be planted in groups. You have a whole space there full of Rattlesnake Master. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. We have a couple species that are in our more formal beds that are
more singular plants.
They were singular plants, and they turned out actually on their own in that rock bed. They turned out to be pretty nice sized and can hold themselves up just fine. I would say you might run into issues where if you don't clump them together, or if you don't put them with a support species,
some grasses,
some grasses or something else that's shorter than it, that they may flop, because you can see actually on these, the ones on the edges are not, these are the ones we cut typically for bloom tables or for display or whatever, because they do fall over. This is a plant that, I would say probably needs some support in at least the first few years, unless you're doing it in a really formal style bed.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks. We've got just one last question, so let's go ahead, and this will be the first time we've answered every question.
Yay!
Catherine says, I know, right? It's a big deal. Catherine says, I have 2 areas I'd like to plant with native plants. When is the best time to prepare the beds? Right now they're covered with lawn grass.
I'd say start tearing it up.
Yeah.
So if spring and fall are the ideal times for planting, then, there's some things you can do during the winter time, but really summer, I think, would be good. You got to remove all that turf grass, remove weeds, things like that, prepare the soil.
Yeah. Right now is a great time to start solarization, if that's the way you want to go. Solarization works. Oh my gosh, it would be actually so ideal to do solarization right now, because if the plants are wet and they're wanting to grow, and then you throw that clear plastic over the top of them, they're going to try to grow under the plastic, but they're going to get cooked because they can't get any air, and the sun's going to eventually be hot again and bake them. So if solarization is the way you're going to go, do that. You could also start lasagna right now, which would be smothering the plants with cardboard. Another way that it kind of depends, like smothering with cardboard definitely works on turf grasses, but it depends on what your weeds are like underneath. Like if you have Bermuda grass or winter creeper or stuff that's not going to get smothered by but if it's just like turf grass, cardboard would totally smother
I was
it.
gonna say I did lasagna gardening to get my bed set up, and I had some success, except winter creeper came through like no one's business, and I did like 3 layers of cardboard and 3 inches of compost on top of it. So yeah, it's a nice way. I mean, I don't know. I guess they could also do both methods, right? Like solarize.
Oh yeah, you can.
So if you have like some heavy duty weeds like that, especially those invasive species, but prep now and get ready to plant. We recommend planting in the fall before the end of September. So that would be a good time, and we'll have a bunch of plant sales coming up here in Kansas City. So that's extra exciting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was our last one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all tuning in.
So it looks like we should have some sunny days for the next week or so. So please take a trip down to the Discovery Center to walk around and see the plants. You can also go to mdc.mo.gov/events. I'm going to put that in the chat if you want to copy that out of there. And you can search for events at the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center and check out some cool class opportunities, time to walk around with Alix and Cydney, and enjoy their antics in person. One moment here. All right, there we go. So if you have been enjoying Native Plants at Noon, you might be interested in attending Deep Root's upcoming Native Landscapes Conference. Planet Native returns September 22nd through 24th. We have a mix of online content that you can access from anywhere and a few in-person Kansas City area field trips. So getting the best of both worlds there. We do have a field trip at the Discovery Center with Alix and Cydney. So registration is open now, and we'd like to say thanks to all of you for joining us every month here on Native Plants at Noon, and let you know that you can save $10 on your registration if you use the code NPN when you go to register. And if you have missed any of our episodes, you can find those on our website at deeproots.org. While you're there, we would greatly appreciate your time to make a small donation and help us keep programs like this going. And that is all we have today for Native Plants at Noon. We'll see you next month in August for the next one. And in the meantime, everyone have a wonderful day. Take a nap if you can. Great day for it.